Hello and welcome to the Leverage Podcast. I'm Paul Richard, and we have Dr. Steve Hughlett here, and it's a great morning. Welcome, Steve. It's good to have you with us.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
All right, we are just fresh off of the Secrets in Healthcare event that occurred 2 weeks ago, and so it was exciting. That's when I first heard about you and found out, and now I found out you're local here in
Yeah.
the Springfield area, which is even better. So,
Yeah.
and you have a fantastic book that's doing great, and we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Okay.
And give us a little background about your pharmacy history and how you got where you are today. Give me a little background.
Okay. I'm a doctor of pharmacy. I got my doctorate in '91, and then I did a pediatrics residency in South Carolina, and then after that I started at a hospital here in town, and I worked there for the next 29 years. And after 29 years, there's a couple different things that happened at the exact same time. One, that's when they came out and said that we all had to have the COVID vaccine. So that's when I said, okay, well, then that's when I retire. And at the same time was when I'd also been asked to talk at we had an annual pediatric seminar that every year we'd bring all the medical personnel from the area that wanted to learn about peds for an entire day. It was just one talk after the other. And I talked at maybe four of those while I was in peds I worked pediatrics for the first 15 years that I worked in Cox. And then for the last half, I became a supervisor, and I was a supervisor then. But I hadn't talked. Once I became a supervisor, it was over the graveyard shift too, because the second and third shift. So I had never talked again. And then all of a sudden, 5 years ago, they asked me if I would talk again at the PED seminar, and they asked me to talk on childhood obesity. And so that's when I said, yeah, and I put a talk together, and that's when I started researching for this talk, that I found out that everything that I've learned all the way through pharmacy school, all the way through pharmacy. So I went to school for 12 years, and then I practiced for 30 years, and now I'm still practicing, but it's in a different light now. But all that time, never really understood what diabetes was. I mean, just, it's high blood sugar and all that, and bring that down. And once I realized that that is a lie, and high blood sugar is just a symptom, and the real problem is keeping high insulin levels for too long, getting insulin resistance, that's when I realized we are making more diabetics by giving them these kind of medications. But anyway, so I gave the talk. They told me that I should write a book. So my wife agreed. So I wrote a book, had to figure out how to write a book, then had to figure out how to self-publish a book. So I did that the first year that I retired. And the second year we started a podcast, and I think we just launched 156th episode. We drop one every week. Came up with a free newsletter for everybody, and then we put a course together to actually have where we can work one-on-one with people if they want, and then we give them videos and all this. But we're just trying to get the word out, and that's kind of what we're doing right now. It's Balanced Fit Lifestyles, but we're trying to just do anything we can to get the word out to as many people as we can that we've been duped. We've been duped by the drug companies and food companies, and diabetic drugs are making more diabetics, and all the other stuff that goes along with it. I don't want to just ramble, because I could ramble forever. So,
No, I love it. I love it, and so that's a great background. So you've looked at it from a clinical standpoint, and a lot of people that I know that are in the allopathic area are now waking up. I call it waking up to what you're talking about. Is suddenly you're like, wait a minute, this whole thing has been a falsehood that I've promoted for a long time. I want to actually bring the truth to the matter. And so talk a little bit about the details. So you were preparing for this talk, and that's when you began to have the light bulbs go on. Is that true?
Right. Yeah. When I started looking for this talk, it was really weird. My wife and I were sitting around. We found a guy, Dr. Lustig, who had gave a YouTube video all on how sugar's killing us. And he is a pediatric, I think he's a pediatric endocrinologist, but he's out of San Francisco. And he put this on there, just something that he was talking to his biochemistry class. And I think it's just had millions of views now, just to talk to his biochem class. So we saw that. And then we heard about a guy named Jason Fung who wrote the Obesity Code and the Diabetes Code. So I started reading that. Well, then we got on YouTube and started looking at Jason Fung and saw all these other people that we found out there's a whole world of people out there who totally understand what true diabetes is, what all this, what's making all of us sick and everything. And we just started recording. And we actually got a notebook, and I recorded who the person was and what they were talking about. And we just kept watching. I thought, oh my gosh, this is changing my world. And I actually told my wife, we were sitting there watching this. I said, one day, I'm going to be up there on that YouTube, and I'm going to be helping spread the word also to make sure that people know this. And just things kind of started happening. We gave the talk, wrote the book, started the podcast. And once started the podcast, then we started getting relationships with people, and it just kind of expanded from there. And we're still trying to figure out, because we're only into this actually probably 3 years now. And the first part was writing the book, then the next part was doing the podcast, and then the next year was putting together these video courses and these one-on-one courses where we can actually help people. And so now the fourth year out is, now we got to get the word out to more people. I just got to get more people knowing me, because I'm never on social media. My wife does all that, but I'm not on any of this stuff. So I'm starting from ground zero, trying to get a business going, just enough income to allow me to continue to do what I'm doing without having to take so much out of my retirement, because I'd rather not take out of my retirement right now.
Of course. Yeah. It seems like the deeper you search, the deeper the hole goes as far as the rabbit hole on this whole thing. I mean,
oh, yes.
I was about 3 years ago, I was in, I'm an EXP realtor here we were at our national meeting. We have about 85,000 agents. And so we were at this national meeting, and I can't remember the name of the doc that's up there. He's one of the famous YouTubers, and he gets up there and he goes, you know what? We're the only country in the world that calls Alzheimer's. You know what it is? It's type 3 diabetes of the brain. Okay,
yeah. And that's how it's reported in the studies also.
Yeah, and I had just went through with my mother, lost her to that whole thing during COVID, which was horrible, and she was isolated from us, and so I lived that, right? And I just go, oh my goodness, I wish I had had this information before. So I think each one of us have been touched by, somebody that's gone through something. And if we had only known, right? If we'd only known,
yeah.
You remember Dr. Artis from the stage, he said, they killed my father-in-law. Yeah. And that was the time I said, this will not go on. I am going to dedicate my life to this message of helping people understand what's going on out there. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's fearless, and you really have to be fearless in this environment because you are facing a giant, right? And in this thing.
Yeah. Several giants. Several
giants, right?
Yeah, they really are, because the food company, they're being promoted and get a bigger thing because of the sugar industry, the chemical industry, the big ag, all that gives all their money to the food companies. So now the food companies have all this toxins that are killing us. And then once they start killing us, now the drug companies can come in and they can give you all these drugs to treat symptoms of all these diseases that you're causing. So, I mean, it's food companies, and it's the business. They're here for money. They're not here for your health. They are here for money, and they're doing a great job of it because they're making trillions of dollars off sick people. None of them would make money off healthy people. None of them. If you're healthy, that means you're not eating this man-made food, which means you're not supplying the sugar industry, the drug or the chemical industry or the big ag. You're not supplying the food companies, and if you're not eating that crap, then you're not getting all the medications that you're going to be when you go to the drug companies. So they don't make money off healthy people. And that's
absolutely.
Why they want to make sure that they keep their trillions of dollars a year coming in from sickness.
So on your journey, you tell us a little bit about how we got here especially from the food perspective. I'd love to hear you talk about that because your book walks through a few things on there. Can you kind of, for somebody that doesn't know how we got here, can you kind of explain what's happened through the food industry, how that's affected our glucose levels and our insulin levels, and where we are today in that?
Yeah, and this is so shortened up, but basically, this happens. It's kind of all started around 1955 when Eisenhower had a heart attack, because back then people didn't have heart attacks, so they didn't know why they having a heart attack. So there were all these people coming out. One person, well, they were smoking, but even back then nobody was telling him that. I think he was a 4-pack a day smoker too. But that brought up two different people. There was Ansel Keys and John Yudkin, and Ansel Keys was going around telling everybody that by eating fat, that's what makes you fat. And Dr. Yudkin said, no, it's not. It's eating sugar. Well, Ansel Keys was a bigger promoter, and he was going all over the place. No studies were ever done talking about how eating fat makes you fat, because once they looked at the studies, found out that was all a lie. It does not do that. And I can tell you exactly why. But basically, because fat does not, the only way you get fat is your insulin levels are high. That's how you get fat, because you have to have insulin to push the fat. Glucose gets turned into triglycerides because of insulin, and that's in the liver. And then insulin also tells you to store fat. So the key to losing fat is use your fat for your energy source. And the only way you can do that is keep your insulin levels low. Fat does not increase your insulin levels. Protein does just a little bit, and carbohydrates really do. So that's where the problem is. The whole problem with diabetes is too high insulin levels. It's not too high sugar levels, blood glucose. That's a symptom of having this insulin resistance. But anyway, so what happened was they started telling everybody eating fat makes you fat. This was also by the food companies as well, because when they tell you eating fat makes you fat, that means now, because you think of fat from animal sources. So they want to get everybody against animal-based products. And I'm not against fruits and vegetables. It's man-made food versus God-made food. That's how I look at it.
Yep.
But what they did is they started getting everybody, in order for to eat their products, the food manufacturer's product, everything in box, bottle, bag, can, has a list of ingredients of all the chemicals that they put in there that your body has to figure out what to do with it, and it's very toxic, inflammatory to our body. Whole other thing. But anyway, so they get you away from animal products, so you start eating all carbs. Well, once you start eating all the carbs, now you're eating all their kind of products, and it's making your glucose goes up, makes your insulin goes up, make you more hungry, and so you keep eating their stuff. And so that, and there's all kinds of reasons for that too, because there's different things in our bodies that keep us feeling full. Protein and fat stimulate those. Carbohydrates do not. So our own mechanism, how we feel full, carbohydrates don't do it. And I don't know if I said it on here, or if it's before we were talking, but our whole body only has 2 teaspoons of sugar in it. Our blood has 2 teaspoons of sugar. The only storage we have for glucose is 10% of our liver. I mean, it's supposed to be for our fight or flight energy. 1% of each skeletal muscle also has glucose stores also, but it's only good for that one skeletal muscle. But anyway, that's all coming back to. So they told us that eating fat was bad, animal stuff is bad, you need to eat all these carbohydrates. And once they started doing that, they found that everybody's eating these carbs, and all of a sudden our blood glucose is going up, because your body doesn't just make glucose that it doesn't need. Our bodies are extremely efficient. So the only glucose we need is for fight or flight, and our bodies can make all the glucose it needs to replenish its glucose stores by turning fat into glucose and turning protein into glucose if it's needed. So if anybody out there has a trouble with high blood glucose, you're a type 2 diabetic, the only reason you have a high blood glucose is because you're eating it. That is the only reason. And nobody tells that, because the medical field, they focus on get that glucose down. And the way they get the glucose down is they give you medications that make your insulin go up. So you're actually making the root cause of insulin resistance worse, because they have everybody focusing on the glucose, and everybody's all happy. Oh, look, my A1C's down, They never even look at the insulin levels. That goes into a whole nother thing. We can talk about that, whatever we want to.
Yeah, we'll touch base,
But so that's kind of what happens. So now you've got the food companies, the sugar industry, then came up with a food pyramid, no scientific backing whatsoever, gave that to the food companies as a marketing source, and now they pushed that to everybody, saying these are the new dietary guidelines. And then they started paying the American Diabetic Association and FDA, and all these people started paying all them this big money to say, yes, this is the food pyramid. This is how everybody should be eating. That happened in 1977, and that's a whole nother story how that happened also. But that happened in 1977 when our dietary guidelines came out. And if you go back on any disease, look at dementia, Alzheimer's, blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, renal disease, fatty liver disease, diabetes, obesity. Look, and would trace, and right around the late 70s, early 80s, all those just started they were all down low, and then all of a sudden right then they just started skyrocketing. And that's why. And we didn't pay any attention. It's like, oh, I don't know why everybody's getting sick. Oh, there's just, the modern times, And it's the food we're eating. The food we are eating is killing us when we eat all this stuff from the man-made foods. And it's been going on like, they're still, to this day, they are still telling everybody that type 2 diabetes is about having high blood sugar, and you got to get that sugar down. You got to get that sugar down. And nobody's talking about insulin levels. And that's exactly what we need to be looking at. Did I even answer your question?
That's great. It's great. It's great.
I start rambling on stuff, and I thought, I don't even remember what I answered. But that's kind of the history. So it started off with Eisenhower having a heart attack, then trying to figure it out. Then you have Ansel Keys and John Yudkin. Ansel Keys told everybody eating fat's what made you fat, and then that get the food manufacturers in there because now they've got all these carbohydrate and chemical, and that's all this stuff is. All this food and the food manufacturers, everything is made out of ultra-processed grains, which are nothing but glucose, straight glucose. It's horrible for you. And plus all the processing they have to go through. There's so many chemicals in these processed grains. Sugar and high fructose corn syrup, because sugar is addictive. They know that. So they want you hungry all the time, because when you eat sugar, it makes you hungrier. Anytime you eat carbohydrates, if that's all you're having is carbs, you're going to be full for about 2 to 3 hours. And then you're gonna be hungry again because it doesn't stimulate any of your satiety centers that makes you feel full. The food companies know this. They know exactly what they're doing. They want to keep you hungry. They want to keep you addicted because you buy their food, and that's fine. That they're a business. They can do what you want. It's your choice. It's not your fault, but it is your choice whether you want to eat that man-made, Franken food or not.
Yeah.
And so that's kept going. So now we have that. Now everybody thinks, we're supposed to eat carbs, and your basic thing, all you eat is, bread and pasta and grains. And, that's supposed to be, and it's so a lie. All that, anything that comes from a plant has a building block of glucose. All plants have glucose in them. Some have more than others. The ones that have starch, like potatoes that grow underneath the ground, they have a lot because starch are just long chains of glucose. So those have a lot. The ones that grow above, people say the leafy greens, those are the ones that grow above the ground. They don't have as much glucose. So, those you don't have to really worry about. Man-made food has a ton. Fruit's full of fructose. I mean, think, what bears do to hibernate. They go around and they eat all the berries that they can because fructose gets turned straight into fat, and that's how they fatten up to hibernate. And also think about, how do they fatten cows up for slaughter? You feed them, even if you're feeding them on pasture, on grain, or on a, actual pasture, then you take them and you feed them full of grain to fatten them up real quick so they can go to slaughter, so they're bigger. So you fatten a cow for slaughter, but they tell everybody else they should be eating grains also, and then wonder, why is everybody getting fat? It's because all that sugar, all the excess sugar, and any glucose you put in any plant-based food, and especially the man-made food, all that goes into your body does not need it, and so your body turns that into triglycerides in the liver, and that's because glucose goes high because you're eating plant-based foods. Your glucose goes high, that makes your insulin go high, and insulin tells the liver to turn all that glucose into triglycerides. So it turns it into triglycerides. Then the liver has to get that triglyceride out of the body and circulate it around. So that's why your fatmobiles, your VLDLs and LDLs, which aren't cholesterol, those are fatmobiles that carries triglycerides and cholesterol around your body. You have more of those. And then insulin also, when insulin's high, it forces your cells, when it goes to the fat cell, to start stuffing it in there. When your insulin level is high, that's all you can do is stuff that fat in the fat cells. You cannot burn it. Physiologically, and I can explain exactly why that is, but you cannot burn it. But once your insulin levels drop, now you can't store fat in your fat cells anymore. You have to burn it from the fat that you have, which is exactly what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to fill our fat cells and then empty it for energy, and then fill our fat cells and empty it for energy. That's what we're supposed to do. And that's what we've done since God created us, until the food manufacturers start coming out with this. And now we constantly eat those carbohydrates, those plant-based foods. We constantly keep our insulin levels high, so we're constantly stuffing fat in our fat cells. Well, we have fat all over our body. Subcutaneous fat, it's all over our body. So and insulin resistance is when one cell, when it gets so stuffed it can't hold it anymore, That is resistant. That's an insulin resistant cell. It's not because there's anything wrong with insulin, not because you're not producing enough insulin. There's nothing wrong with the cell. You just have so many triglycerides filled in, and a fat cell can grow like 10 times its size. It can be a very big cell. But that's what insulin resistance is. And so now we're telling everybody, insulin resistance or, even pre-diabetes, that's when your glucose starts going up. Insulin resistance happens for 10, 20, 30, 40 years before you fill up all the fat cells in your body. And now you're totally insulin resistant. And now you see the glucose levels go up. Just like pre-diabetes. Stop me if I just ramble, because I tend to ramble.
This is good. Keep going.
Is that making sense?
Yes.
They tell her, right, pre-diabetes. What pre-diabetes truly is, not what the medical community is telling you. Okay, they're saying pre-diabetes is a A1C of 5.7 to 6.4. That's not pre-diabetes. That's just another way to get more people on medications. Pre-diabetes, what it actually means is when you first start off, when you're young, except for now we're starting them from birth. We're starting to get them sugar addicted from birth because all the infant mills and all that's not the name brand, but just all the infant formulas that are made. They put the same stuff, the seed oils, the high fructose corn syrup, the ultra processed carbs. They put all that in baby formulas too, and tell everybody it's healthier than breast milk. Was absolutely ludicrous. Breast milk is a superfood. But anyway, so where was I going? The insulin turns that into fat, triglycerides. Well, shoot. I squirreled myself. I don't remember where I was going with that. But anyway, that they try to take your eye off the ball. That's what I was going to say. So that's why it takes 10 to 30 years. That's pre-diabetes. So you've got your insulin, you eat glucose, and your insulin comes up, brings that glucose back down, and now your insulin levels come back down. But as you do this day after day, week after week, month, year, decade after decade, you're filling up all your fat cells, and so it takes more and more and more insulin to keep your glucose levels down. So when you go to the doctor and all they do is look at a glucose level, they're going to say, oh, your glucose level is fine. You don't have anything to worry about. Yeah. They don't even look at your insulin level, and that's pre-diabetes. When your insulin levels are high, but your glucose levels are low, that's pre-diabetes. And that happens for, like I said, 10, 20, 30, 40 years, depending. Pretty soon, you're going to have insulin resistance. All your fat cells are totally stuffed. Once that happens, that's when your body can't put fat anywhere else. It starts storing around your organs. That's why we see all the fatty liver disease, the fatty hearts. There's a doctor, he's a cardiothoracic surgeon, Dr. Ovadia. He wrote a book just like I did because he kept seeing all these people as he was going through life doing cardiothoracic surgeries. He noticed that people, they're getting more and more fat all around their hearts, even though they're eating, these low-fat diets. Oh, they're eating low-fat diets, and they're still getting all this fat. It's because fat doesn't come from eating fat. That was a lie. That was a blatant lie. Fat comes from eating glucose. It gets turned into fat. That's what you have to worry about because glucose makes your insulin high. So that's pre-diabetes. And then all of a sudden you go in the doctor. So if you go in the doctor right here, they're going to say you're fine. You go in the very next time, and now your glucose is up because you're insulin resistant, and now they tell you have type 2 diabetes. You've been working on type 2 diabetes for a long time. And like I said, the answer is so easy, but no drug company, nobody's going to tell you that you can totally reverse type 2 diabetes just by stop eating carbohydrates. And we've always known that. When I first started practice in the early 90s, it was actually called, you had insulin-dependent diabetes, which is type 1. You have to have insulin because your pancreas doesn't produce it. And then it's called non-insulin-dependent diabetes because they knew that you have plenty. Type 1 means you don't have any insulin. Type 2 means you have way too much insulin. And so we knew we never gave insulin to those people. But they thought, well, if we give them drugs that stimulate the pancreas to produce more insulin, we can still get them to be diabetic and give them more diabetic medications. We just aren't giving them insulin. And now we're giving type 2 diabetics insulin. We're saying, oh my gosh, they're insulin resistant. We need to give them more insulin. And trust me, I know exactly what they do because I worked in the hospital, and that's what we do. We just keep giving more and more. Oh, look at that glucose. We got to get that glucose down. I actually have a friend of mine. He's 520 pounds. And he went into the hospital. I'd been working with him for about a year. He got his A1C down from somewhere around 12 down to like 5.5, just in that short period of time, off all your diabetic medications and everything. Went into the hospital because he had swelling because he's still 520 pounds. Went in the hospital, and they said he ordered his stuff off the menu, and they gave him a diabetic menu. So he just took off all the carbs and just marked all the protein and all the fat that he wanted. They came to him and said, you can't do this. If you're on the diabetic menu, you have to order at least 70 grams of carbohydrates so we'll know how much insulin we can give you. It's like, what? How about if we just don't eat the carbohydrates and you don't have to give me any insulin? I mean, and this is going on now. This happened like this last year. This is still going on because, and I'm guilty of it too. This isn't, I mean, unless you go out and look, I was always taught diabetes was high blood glucose too. And all these drugs coming out in the 80s and 90s, not a single diabetic medication was put on the market because they said that there aren't enough type 2 diabetics to make it worth their while. And because all the studies showed that even if you lower glucose, you still don't, that doesn't change your health in any way. You still have the same amount of cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's, all the other things, because it's not about the glucose. It's about the insulin. Actually, what it's about is insulin, inflammation, and glucose. Those are the three pillars. When you have high insulin and high inflammation, which happens for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, when you have that for so long, you get insulin resistant. Now the glucose goes up. When the glucose goes up, now you're tearing up every organ in the body. Insulin tears up the organs in your body, inflammation tears up the organs in your body, and glucose tears up all the cells of your body. That's what's happening. That's what an A1C is. It's glucose binding to the hemoglobin on the red blood cell, which is protein. So you're actually damaging the protein because glucose sticks to that. And then we can measure that because a red blood cell has a half-life or has a life of about 3 to 4 months. So that's why you can see all the glucose is attached to these red blood cells. Well, just like a life blood cell is 3 to 4 months, so it kind of gives you what the average concentration of glucose has been for the last 3 to 4 months. But just like it binds to the protein on the red blood cell, the glucose binds to all the proteins in your body, and it denatures it. It tears up all the organs. So again, like we were saying, so all you have to do, if you quit eating glucose, your glucose levels come down. If your glucose levels come down, your insulin's going to come down. And if you're not eating all this man-made Franken food, your inflammation is going to come down also. So you can wipe out all three of those pillars by not eating man-made food. Everything in box, bottle, bag, can. And people think, oh, what's so bad is it takes 10, 20, 30, 40 years for this to happen. So people don't realize. If they went and they ate a box of whatever, whatever product you want to say, if
Little
they
Debbie's
ate that
or whatever,
and died right away, people would stop. But instead, you don't die or go into multi-organ failure for 2, 3, 4 decades. So they don't relate it. And they think everybody's doing this. Everybody's eating this. It can't be bad. Well, if you stop and look around, yes, it is, because it is appalling how many medications people come into our hospital with. I mean, the garbage sacks full of medication bottles that they take. It's ridiculous because we just keep treating symptom after symptom. You get the glucose down, but now you have high blood pressure, so we give all kinds of different medication with that. Starting having heart dysrhythmia, starting to have fatty liver disease, starting to have all these Alzheimer's, dementia, all these diseases, and we have ways to treat those symptoms as well. Nobody's taking care of the root cause, and I'm telling you, that's the root cause. Stay away from man-made products, and you'll be able to avoid all this crap. I mean, just like you. I mean, I'm 63, my wife's 60. Never go to the doctor, not on a single medication. Our goal is to never be on a medication, and I don't think it will. Drug companies, they're like, if you're not healthy, if you want to be healthy and maintain your health, you should be on this drug or this drug. You're just like, no. And that's what I said in the talk, is like, if you think you're healthy, and you're on medication, that's like taking out a loan from a bank and thinking you're rich. It's like, it doesn't work that way. Just the fact that you're on medication, you are not healthy, and you need to figure out a different way to do it. And this is one, no matter what is going on in your life, if you quit feeding your body toxins and give it the nutrients it needs, you'd be amazed at what God has done with this body. It can get us through, and I'm not saying, oh, look at me, we're so healthy. I'm just saying, when you stop eating that stuff, we don't get sick. We don't have bacterial infections. We don't have viral infections. And I say we, me and my wife, but other people who eat like this are the same way. You're out and you're living life, you're enjoying life, and you're not just thinking, oh, when's my next doctor's appointment? I wonder what medication I'm going to be put on now. And there's two groups, those groups that they live on medications and those groups that aren't on any medications. And it's like the two groups don't even realize that the other group is out there. They are, and you want to be on the kind that don't have the drugs. And all medication, people think medications just have, they have like 3 or 4 harmful effects because it says it at the bottom of the commercial. No. Almost every single medication, I would say all medications that I'm aware of, except for Tylenol. Tylenol is the safest drug on the market. And when you look, they all have 30, 40, 50. Some of them, like the Ozempic and the statins, have over 70 different adverse effects, and those are just the ones reported. Tylenol has 4, and oral Tylenol has like 4, and they're nothing. You know, that's a whole nother issue of what people are talking about now. And it's more things of how drug companies and food companies are trying to take your eye off the ball. Just what I said. They look at diabetes like it's high blood glucose. So look at the high blood glucose and look at your weight. And if your glucose is down, your weight's down, you're healthy. And that is not true. That's not true. You know, just like with these GLP-1s. If you're looking at sugar and your sugar's down, it's because GLP-1s cause your insulin to go up. If you're looking and your weight is down, it's because GLP-1 makes you starve yourself when your body is eating it. It's auto-cannibalism. It's eating itself from the inside. So yeah, it's eating from your fat for energy. But if you're not eating, you're also not getting protein. So it's eating your muscles for all the protein, because we have a huge protein need. So just the fact that you're looking at, you know, they have you look at A1C, your A1C's down, but they don't tell you that your insulin's up because GLP-1s cause insulin to rise. And they have you look at your weight, say, oh, your weight's down. They don't tell you that over half the weight you've lost is from muscle loss because you're starving yourself. And you're literally, your body is eating itself from the inside. It needs the fat for energy. It needs the protein for the amino acids. The basic building block of protein is amino acids. There's only 20 amino acids in all the animal and plant kingdom, only 20, but you put those together in all kinds of different ways. Our body uses over 20,000 different proteins, and one protein, some of these proteins, one protein can be like 27,000 amino acids long. So we need lots of amino acids. And if you're not eating it because you've paralyzed your stomach and your intestines, which causes all the death of your stomach and your intestines, but if you're not eating it, your body is going to get it. And just like you can cut off your arms, you can cut off your legs, you're going to do perfectly fine. Our body will do what it can to save its organs. And so it will eat your muscles for protein. It will eat your fat for energy. And if you're not eating, you're also not getting the vitamins and minerals. So you're not getting any of the nutrients that your body needs, but you're so happy because your glucose is down and your weight's down. They're taking your eye off the ball. And that's what I'm fighting against, you know, is all that. Just doing the same thing with the statins.
That's exactly right. And, you know, so I look at when you go to the grocery store, it's almost like going to a Mexican restaurant. Every dish has beans, ground burgers, and something like rice. Okay, so everything on the menu is made out of those 3 things, right? You go into the store. If you go into the things that you say like box, cans, and bags, if you look at the label, you're going to see soy products, corn products,
vegetable oils,
and some other kinds of seed oils in there, right? And they've just mixed it up a different way, and sugar,
high fructose corn syrup,
and made it some flavor somehow with the
chemicals.
How many natural ingredients are allowed under our current laws? It says natural flavoring or something like that.
Yeah, no, you can't go off natural flavoring. That's and there's a whole nother book we read. This isn't like a virtual backdrop. I mean, we read constantly on this, and this goes. I mean, we read, and I've learned more in the last 5 years than I learned for the last 30. I mean, it's crazy, but that's what a label is. If you have to read a label to see if it's healthy, chances are it's not. Because think of the grains. Think of what they do. Because you brought up corn, soy, and wheat. Okay, so when they crop those, you're supposed to. Farming knows that you grow a crop and then you let the ground rest and you let it rejuvenate its nutrients and everything, and so you rotate your fields. They don't do that. They monocrop. They sit there and they keep growing the same crop, so our soil totally depleted of all the nutrients. That's one thing. Then they also have to keep all the insects and everything off. So they come through and they crop dust these things with all these things, glyphosate and all this stuff that's killing us, because they have to, for pesticides, insecticides, fungicides, herbicides. So you're getting those chemicals. Been proven that does get in the grains. Now you take those grains into a big manufacturing plant and you subject those to high pressures, high temperatures, petrochemical solvents, bleaching agents. And the people who work on these lines that are making these vegetable oils, they say it stinks so bad they have to have respirators because it reeks. So they put deodorizing agents in there also. So you're going to have all these chemicals out in the field. Then you bring them into a manufacturing plant and you put all these chemicals in them in a manufacturing plant. Then you put them in a plastic bottle, put them on a shelf, and tell everybody that this is the healthy stuff you're supposed to eat. And it's there now. Go to your grocery stores now. And it's full of these toxic seed oils. And that's just one reason why they're toxic, is all the chemicals. Our body doesn't know what to do with all these chemicals. It's trying to figure out, and that's why we become inflamed. Because our army, our white blood cells that are involved in all the inflammatory process are trying to keep us healthy, but it doesn't know what to do with all these chemicals. And so it starts tearing up and acting against itself is what happens. And that's not even to mention, when you have these seed oils, which are not oils, seed, it takes so much to get oil out of a seed. But when you have all these seed oils, there's two essential fatty acids, omega-6 and omega-3. I think most people know those terms. Yes. Omega-3 fatty acid is something that causes anti-inflammatory prostaglandins in your body. Omega-6 causes inflammatory prostaglandins. You need inflammatory prostaglandins because that's our body. We want the inflammatory process. So if you get a thorn in your foot, or you break a leg, or you get pneumonia, a viral infection, it's the inflammatory response that takes care of that. So you want that. But you can't have all inflammatory and no anti-inflammatory, or your body goes into berserkness. And yeah, that's a word. But then the omega-3s, what they found is a good ratio of omega-6 to omega-3. So the inflammatory for the anti-inflammatory is around 3-to-1, 7-to-1, something like that. So you have about 7 inflammatory prostaglandins to about 1 anti-inflammatory. And that's what you get. When you eat beef, when you eat grass-fed, grass-finished beef, it's about a 3-to-1. Grass-fed, grain-finished beef is about 7-to-1. When they take these seed oils off the shelves and they look at them, these omega-6s, it gets up to around 20, 30, over 50-to-1 that you're getting all these inflammatory prostaglandins and just not hardly any omega-3s whatsoever. So that's why eating that food is so inflammatory. One, when you put those oils on there, they're inflammatory because of just what I said, way more omega-6s than omega-3s and all the processing they have to do to get into an oil. Those things are toxic. And the problem is they're cheap because it's chemical. Since there's no nutrients in it, when you go out to eat fried food at a restaurant, it's not necessarily the food. It could be, but it's what they're frying it in. So all the, if you have mushrooms, that's good, but now they're frying them, so now that's bad. French fries, if you could have little strips of potatoes, as long as you don't have glucose problems, because there is a lot of glucose in potatoes, because they grow below the ground, so that's starch. But you can eat that stuff, but it's what they're frying it in that's killing everybody, these seed oils. So you brought up Mexican food. That's why when we go to Mexico, and we love Mexican. But my wife and I, we split the fajitas. We get the biggest fajitas, all meat fajitas, and just don't get the shells. We don't eat the rice. Rice is pure glucose. It's fine as long as you're healthy. Your body can handle that. It knows how to handle glucose. Fructose is what it doesn't know how to handle, and that's in sugar and glucose, or sugar and high fructose corn syrup and fruits. But so we just do that. We just get fajitas. And we just split it, put it on a plate, and just eat the fajitas like that. No shell, no rice, none of that. If you want to put the lettuce and guac and all that, that's fine. That's not going to hurt anybody. And burgers, I love hamburgers. When I first started finding out about nutrition, I thought, I could never have another hamburger. It's like, well then, I don't remember what happened. Somebody told me or had an epiphany. It's like, order the burger. Everything on a hamburger is good. It's fine. You have a good beef steak. You have the lettuce, tomato, bacon, cheese, mushroom, whatever you want. Just say no bun. And then instead of getting fries, I say instead of fries, I'll have buttered broccoli or veggies or whatever thing you have. So that just getting rid of that bun is huge, because if you eat that bun, well, if you eat the French fry, one, that's more glucose, and you're also getting the seed oils that's fried in. But just by eating the bun, just by eating glucose, once you put that in your mouth, your body knows, so it starts raising your insulin levels. Once your insulin level is high, it does something totally different with that food, because now your insulin level is high, and now you are eating fat along with it, like you should be. But since your insulin levels are high, again, you're causing that fat to be stored also. That's why carbohydrates and fat, you will not see that in nature anywhere. You have protein and carbs, which that's what you're going to eat, like fruits and vegetables. And then you have protein and fat, animal meat. You never see fat and carbohydrates together in nature. That's only a man-made product, and that's why. You put the carbohydrate to raise your insulin, put the fat in there, and cause everybody to be fat and sick, and now everybody's making money. And that's the deal. So don't belittle the fact that you have, it's just a bun, or just rice. It's going to raise your insulin, and everything is about your insulin levels and inflammation and glucose. But if you just keep thinking about that, so anything comes from a plant, and people ask us different things like, well, do nuts come from a plant? Does broccoli come from a plant? It's like, so instead of saying plant-based, we say, if it didn't come from an animal, because I think everybody did a nut come from an animal? No. Well, the nut came from a plant, because there's only 3 types of food. There's animal-based food, plant-based food, and chemical-based food. And the food manufacturers, that's all chemical-based food, and it is toxic. And it really, I think people, they don't think about how serious it is because everybody's doing it, and that's and the drug companies, food companies just keep pushing that stuff out.
So this has all set us up for this massive promotion of weight reduction drugs, right?
Yep.
Supposed weight reduction drugs. So we were primed and brought to this point, right? Obesity is at an all-time high.
Oh yeah. And we are making it worse.
We are making it worse. And there's several factors there. There's a lot of deception things going on there. And then I'll give you one example of that. So in the marketplace, right? And I know you know this, but you go in the marketplace and it says protein bars, right? And then you turn around, look at the ingredients, and it's soy isolates or something like this, which immediately, as soon as you eat it, it turns into sugar, and it's going to send your your insulin levels high. So you've been deceived by the label, right? Most of the high protein products are going to have that in there, right? Some modified food starch or something, which is going to create the same thing.
Yep. You got to look at your store. Always look at your source, and that's marketing. They know that. Even just you can go down and look at, they know what people are looking for. You'll say no fat or less fat or something like that. If you go and you look at just the exact same brand of, say, salad dressing, exact same type, what I don't want to name names, I guess. I don't know, but just name a name, the type. Say it's. I can't even think of salad dressing names. Whatever, Thousand Island, I don't know.
Wishbone or, yeah.
Yeah. So you look at that and look at the back. The ones that say no fat, the ones that say low fat, and the one that is full fat. And you turn them over. The one that's low fat has the highest amount of sugar in it. Then it goes down that way. Because when you take the fat out, you take the flavor out, and so you end up with the seed oils, but then they add the sugar back for the flavor. So they're telling everybody, since they're telling everybody that you should eat low fat, which is a lie, that's how they start adding all these carbohydrates. We're the same age. Do you remember when this first came out and they were talking about, it's low fat, no fat, and all? My wife and I, we'd walk into the grocery store and there'd be these great big Danishes in these big boxes. As soon as you walk in, it says, no fat. These are no fat or low fat. It's like, are you kidding? We can eat all these and there's no fat? And oh my God. We blimped up. We both blimped up big time when we, and even then, even until 5 years ago, I still didn't understand it. I still, and people still think eating fat is what makes you fat. And that has nothing to do with obesity. Obesity is high insulin levels, period. Fat does not raise your insulin levels. Glucose does. Glucose is in all plant-based foods. Some have more than other, and it's definitely in all man-made food because they know how you get addicted to it. Literal chemical addictions with the addictive addiction center at your pleasure center in the brain called the nucleus accumbens. But they've done studies and found that glucose lights up your nucleus accumbens, your pleasure center, the exact same way cocaine does. So where it takes a little bit to get stimulated at first, now it takes more and more and more because the nucleus accumbens becomes resistant. That's how the body's made. Anytime we get way too much of something, our body will shut that down. It's like, this is too much, and you become resistant. It does it with insulin. That's how you get insulin resistance, because you keep the insulin too high for too long. It does it with that. It does it with the nucleus accumbens. And they found that when the nucleus accumbens, when you get resistant to that, you actually become resistant to all pleasures in life. You start having less pleasure because the pleasure center is lit up constantly. We eat like we're kids, eat like adults. Kids, oh, can I have sugar all the time? Well, you sure can, and that's what adults do. They sit here and they eat sugar constantly because they can. They don't realize that it's absolutely killing them. But anyway, there's also another resistance. It's called leptin. Leptin is a thing that our bodies make. Full fat cells produce leptin to keep makes our body say, I'm not hungry anymore, stop eating. But we found out that obese people have so much leptin that now leptin, when it goes to the medial hypothalamus, it's resistant, so it doesn't work as well. So now, just because you're obese, that also blocks out the type, something that keeps you feeling full. It blocks your satiety center. And high insulin levels, they're looking at high insulin. They think insulin also blocks leptin. So that's why they found out that this is actually leptin resistance is what's going on. That's why obese people are hungry all the time. That, and also because all through your intestinal tract, if you eat carbohydrates, it stays in your stomach for about 30 to 60 minutes, gets into your intestines, stays about 30 to 60 minutes, gets broken down to glucose, shut in the blood, automatically glucose goes up, insulin goes up, and then everything we've been talking about happens. When you just eat protein and fat, that stays in your stomach for about 2 to 4 hours. Then it drips down in your intestine and it stays there for about 4 to 24 hours. And as it goes through the intestines, there are things that make you feel full. There's cholecystokinin and peptide YY are two of them. And those get stimulated by protein and fat being in the intestines. And those go to the medial hypothalamus, say, I'm not hungry, stop eating. So that's why when you eat protein and fat, you can go for hours and days without eating and you don't get hungry because you're giving the body the nutrients it needs. When you eat all this man-made product with carbs, one, it's carbs, so it doesn't stimulate peptide YY or cholecystokinin, plus carbs get turned to glucose, stuff your fat cells, so it causes full fat cells, so you have increased leptin, increase your chance of leptin resistance, increase your insulin, so it blocks leptin. So all these things that keep you hungry all the time, you bypass what our body's naturally made to do when you're eating all this man-made food. And that's where they've got you, and that's where you can break the cycle. But you got to break your carbohydrate addiction, your sugar addiction. You got to realize, you got to look at it like this is poison, And people say, oh, well, I should, I won't eat any sugar and flour, but I've got to give it to my child because otherwise I'm not a good parent. They should have all these pleasures too. That is crazy. That's like, I don't want to put poison in my body, but I think my child should have some poison. How much does it take to poison your child? Well, we're finding out because we never saw type 2 diabetes until people were like in their, 50s, 60s, something like that. And now we're seeing them in kids definitely in their teens now. And sometimes we're seeing some type 2 diabetes in kids less than that because we start them off with infant formula and continue with this, these fruit juices. And people think they're doing right. It's like, feed my kids, some oats, oatmeal and some toast and give them a good thing of orange juice and send them off with a protein bar and a energy drink or whatever. And it's glucose all the way through everything they're doing. And now the kids wired, they're up there and they're all wired and they can't sit still in the chair. So now, my child's hyper. I need to go get him on ADD medications, and it just keeps going. And everybody knows about the red dyes that are in the foods that are causing hyperactivity in kids, and then that's okay because we have a drug that can take care of that too. And it's horrible when you actually find out that people are not looking at what nourishes the body. All they look at is what tastes good in my mouth, and it's killing us.
You mentioned, yeah, no, that's great.
Did I go off again?
It's awesome.
I tend to do that.
The other area that so we talked about that, fake protein, or the protein bars or whatever. You think you're doing the right thing, but it's gonna have the same effect as if you ate a candy bar, and then or maybe even worse because of the seed oils. Yeah. Now, and the other area that kind of angers me, and if you want to be a vegan, that's fine, that type of thing. Yet, if you go into the different sections, you've got frozen chicken nuggets that are vegan, all right? And you flip that thing over and you look at what's in there, and it's a chemistry set, right?
Yeah,
it's a chemistry thing. Because to make it taste like chicken and to give it the flavoring, you have to build that from the chemistry set, right? And so it's going to be so you think that being a vegan would be very healthy, and then you eat these foods like that because obviously they taste good. They're cool. It's nice to have them, but you're destroying your health by eating those because you're putting all those chemicals into it.
Well, plus, again, think of the body. I mean, anything that comes out, that's the first thing I think is thinking about what does the body need. When you look at your body, if you just sit there and just shred your body up, it's made out of protein, fat, cholesterol, vitamins, minerals, and water. That's it. Not carbs, not glucose. 10% of your liver. If you take all the stores, every single bit of glucose in your body, it's going to come up to about 2,400 calories, which is about the amount of energy people use in a 24-hour period if they sleep. If that's all you're doing is sleeping, you're going to use about 2,400 calories, okay? So that alone lets you know that glucose was not supposed to be our main energy source, okay? Fat, 1 pound of fat has 4,000 calories. 1 pound of fat has more energy in it than all this glucose that we continuously do it. So if you're 10 pounds over fat, that means you've got 40,000 extra calories on board. And this is not a calorie thing. It's not about the calories. It's about the calorie source. When you use glucose for your calorie source, you're going to store fat. When you use fat for your energy source, you're going to burn the fat out of your fat cells and you're going to be healthy. It's not about calories. That's another lie that we've been told that. This sort of stuff, the marketing, you hit on the marketing earlier too. They'll say something like, look on the front, say, made with real olive oil. And then you turn around the back, and the very first thing is a seed oil. And way down the bottom of this ingredient list, because they get listed in the order of how much is in there. Down at the bottom, they have, oh yeah, we also whip some avocado oil in there. They know what they're doing. This marketing, low fat, no fat, real avocado oil. They know the buzzwords that they need to get you to eat their frankenfoods, and that's horrible. And I know I just scrolled again, didn't I?
That's good. No, that's good. And I think those things, it's important for people to wake up to this. And I think there's I think YouTube has started to allow more of that to be promoted. Sometimes there's different, viral videos that go out there on what to shop for when you're at Costco or what to shop for when you're at Aldi or whatever, Walmart, that kind of thing. And those are helpful. Excuse me. And those are helpful. Go ahead.
I was going to say, that reminds me of what I was talking about. You asked about veganism, or talked about veganism. If you think of the body as nutrients, okay, yes, plants have protein. Not very much. I mean, think of a, lettuce and a T-bone steak. I mean, feel them. You know which one has more protein, which one has more vitamins and minerals. The steak has every vitamin and mineral we need, okay? It has everything. Plants, they have some, but you have to eat a lot of plants in order to get the amount of vitamins and minerals that you need. And the more plants you eat, the more glucose you're putting into your body. So, and they don't have very much fat. If you eat fruits like avocado oil, again, avocado oil, stay away from the vegetable oils, okay, which are seed oils, but fruit oils are fine. So extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil, and avocado oil. Those are fruits. Fruit oils are good because they don't have to go through all that processing. Still have to watch out because they still put the glyphosate and all that kind of stuff on them too. So be careful where you get them. That's why we always recommend getting your fruits and vegetables from a local farmer. Go to the farmer's market. Get them from there. Do not get them from the grocery store. We don't buy any food from the grocery store. None. But we get a side of beef, and that's the meat that we eat all year and everything from people that we know, the farmers that we know.
Yes.
But anyway, so when you're vegan, you're not getting very much protein. You have to eat a lot to get, and you're not stimulating your peptide, white body, and cholesterol. So you're eating all the time, about every 2 to 3 hours. So they're not getting the protein. They're not getting the fat. Basically, all you're getting is carbohydrates. You're getting some vitamins and minerals, but not very much of them. So when you just look at what the body needs, it needs a lot of protein. Like I said, I mean, we go through a ton of protein. So you're going to have to eat a ton of plants to be able to get that. To where you could just have one ribeye steak and you're going to get a ton of protein. Same with the vitamins and minerals. Same thing with the fat, the good healthy fat. And that is the good healthy fat. That has a better omega-6 to omega-3 ratio and everything. But, so that's the deal with veganism. If you don't want to eat animals, that's your prerogative. Just realize it's not a health thing that you're doing that with. It's not.
Right.
And you don't have to actually eat a meat. Eat products that come eggs, full fat dairy, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, all that stuff is perfectly fine. Anything comes from an animal, our body, you may not know, but we are animals. So when we eat animals, we are getting all the nutrients that our body needs. And when you get your nutrients that your body needs, you're satisfied. You don't get hungry. And again, if that's all you're eating is plants, that's why you're hungry all the time, because you're not giving it all the nutrients you need. And that's another reason why we're hungry all the time, because if you just eat plants and you eat this frankenfood all the time, your body knows you ate it, and a couple hours later it's like, wait, I still didn't get the nutrients I ate, so it sends out the hunger signal again. It says, okay, give me the nutrients. And you keep eating the same crap, and it's going to keep sending out that signal until you finally give it the nutrients it needs. And it's animal-based nutrients. If you want fruits and vegetables, that's fine. Depending on your health status, you can, have as many as you want, but just realize there are, and all plants have phytotoxins in them, because plants don't want to be eaten. Fruits want to be eaten. That's how they do it. So that's why, like bananas, when they're green, they're real bitter, because they don't want animals eating it, because the seeds aren't ripe yet. Because a fruit is an ovary. That's what a fruit is. That's how you know a fruit from a vegetable. So it has all these seeds inside of it. Well, once the seeds are ready, now the fruit becomes sweet, and now the animals eat it. Then they eat it, and then they go and they poop, and they spread the seeds, and that's how fruits propagate. Vegetables, other plants don't propagate. They don't want you eating them. They're here for their survival, so they have all kinds of toxins. So all this stuff, just like potatoes, the potato skin's the healthiest part. No, that's the most toxic part. It's the shell they have to be careful of, because that's what it wants the animals to bite into and not like and leave it alone. So all the toxins are going to be in the skins. In fact, we've got a really good friend who I'll test his knowledge to anybody's. And he travels all over the world. Him and his family, he takes his kids and his wife and everything, and they live with all these little tribes all around, just like the Blue Zone thing. They're telling everybody like the Blue Zones, they're vegans. That's a lie. He'd been to all these places. They all eat meat. That was just more propaganda. But so he goes to all these places, and he said nobody eats potato skins except us. Nobody. There's the most toxins in that. And now we actually sell them if you just want fried potato skins. So now you have the toxic potato skin that has all these toxins in it, and then you go and you deep fry it in the seed oils, and everybody thinks, oh my gosh, isn't this crazy? You're eating just strychnine or whatever. I mean, you are eating toxic substances when you eat that stuff, but it doesn't kill you right away. It just inflames your body, and now your body's trying to take care of it, and you don't even realize that's going on, but you're taxing your body. That's why when something like a virus or a bacteria come on, your body's already taxed. Its inflammatory system's been going forever, so now it can't fight that, and now you end up sick. Anyway.
That's fantastic.
I'm sorry.
So, no apology needed. This is so good. This is all fantastic information. I hope you realize that you're promoting and creating healthy people can take your information and get even healthier, or sick people can get healthy.
Hopefully,
with the information
you really can get off these drugs. You really can.
Yeah, and coming from a pharmaceutical background, a pharmacy background, so you gave a talk at the Secrets in Healthcare about the weight reduction drugs. Tell us a little bit. Can you give us a summary of that? I have a friend. I do my best to warn them about what's going on. We've heard, possible blindness, your stomach locking up or whatever, those kind of things. What would you advise as a pharmacist? What would you advise on this?
The way all diabetic drugs work, and now they're classified as weight loss, but it's still the same thing. They all work by either stimulating pancreas to produce more insulin or to make your cells more sensitive to insulin. The GLP-1 agonists do the exact same thing. They stimulate the pancreas to produce more insulin. So remember, the root cause of diabetes is high insulin levels. So just by stimulating the pancreas, you actually make diabetes worse. And they know that. That's why when they give that to you, they say you're going to be on this for the rest of your life, because they're making you be on that the rest of your life. The other thing it does is it paralyzes the stomach, okay? Our bodies naturally produce an actual hormone, GLP-1. They're just agonist. They aren't actually GLP-1. That's not the hormone like our bodies produce. It actually comes from, I think, it's the Gila monster. It's a peptide out of the venom of a Gila monster is what they use. But when we eat normally, without the drug, just normally when we eat, our body does not want a high blood glucose. It doesn't want it. So as soon as you put sugar in your mouth, your body starts producing insulin, okay? Then when it gets down your body produces a hormone called GLP-1, and it stimulates the stomach or inhibits the stomach, so it keeps food in there longer because it doesn't want that glucose dropping out. Because if it all drops in the intestines quick and goes in your blood, your glucose levels go very high, and so will your insulin levels. And your body doesn't want that, so it slowly does this. So the way it works is after you eat, it'll hold it in there for a little bit, and then it'll slowly let the glucose out, and then it goes in your blood, and now it's also spiking your insulin, so it gets that glucose down. Okay, it lasts for about 2 hours or so after you eat a meal. Well, since your body doesn't want high glucose, but it doesn't want high insulin either, after the food's coming out of your stomach, your body produces another hormone or an enzyme called DPP4. And I'll explain why I'm saying that. DPP4 blocks that GLP-1, and so that allows the insulin levels to come back down after the food's out of your stomach. We have drugs that'll block DPP4, so it doesn't block GLP-1, so it keeps your insulin levels high and keeps food in your stomach. Plus, the GLP-1s that are made from the Gila monster, the venom, what that does is that stays in your system for a week instead of for 2 hours. So now you're keeping your insulin levels high for a long time. You're keeping food in the stomach for way longer. There have been people that have been told not to eat anything for 12 hours before they go in for surgery, abdominal surgery. And when the doctors got in there, found out there was food in the person's stomach that had been there for over 3 days that they had eaten 3 days ago. And it was just rotting in the stomach. That's why they call them Ozempic burps, when people are burping up this rotten food because you've got food rotting in your stomach. Because you eat and then you don't eat anymore. When you don't eat anymore, your body needs nutrients. It's got to have the nutrients. So since you're not eating anything, it needs energy, so it starts eating the fat out of your fat cells, like we're supposed to do. That's how we're supposed to be made. But it also it needs protein. We need a lot of protein, and so it starts getting the protein from your muscle cells because it has to break those protein down to amino acids and make all the proteins that our body uses. So the doctors, when you go in, they look at your A1C and you're like, look, my A1C is down. Well, yeah, because you're not eating carbohydrates anymore. That's why it's down. And then they say, so your A1C is down, but it's because your insulin levels are high. So you're making it worse. And they say, oh, look, I've lost all this weight. But they don't tell you that over half the weight that you've lost is from muscle wasting. You're eating your own muscles. And especially as you get older, that's the exact opposite of what you need to build muscle. That's what's going to help carry you into your later years in life. You've got to be building the muscle, and that's going to help provide you. So the doctors, because the drug companies tell the doctors what to do. So the drug companies tell the doctors, look at their A1C. Yeah, that's down. Look at their weight. Yeah, that's down. They don't tell you that you just lost all your muscle and that now your insulin levels are higher and now you're diabetic. So, and that kind of stuff goes on all the time. They take your eye off the ball. They have you look at this when you really should be looking at this. Like I said, insulin levels, you can get your insulin levels on your own. My wife did it. She went on the computer. She went on this place called LabCorp, and it says, what blood work do you want? And she picked fasting insulin. They sent her a script. She took it to a place to do a blood draw here in town called LabCorp. They drew her blood. They did it, and 3 days later, she got her insulin level. It was so easy. And even that is a lie because the drug companies are trying to tell everybody that you want your insulin levels less than 20. That is a lie. That's for people who are eating all the carbohydrates constantly because they're trying to make all these drugs assuming everybody's going to be eating all these carbs constantly, which they do. You really want it less than 10, and really you'd like to have your insulin levels less than 5. Okay, if it's over 20, if it's up around 20, you still are eating way too much plant-based foods. I mean, that's what it's coming from, or more man-made food, which is just chemical-based foods. So you can get your insulin level. If you go to the doctor and he says you're pre-diabetic or whatever because he's looking at the A1C, he's not knowing that you've had pre-diabetes for decades. But what he's going to do is if you ask him for an insulin level, can you get a fasting insulin level? He's going to look at you like, why do you need an insulin level? I won't even do it. I mean, a lot of doctors, they won't even do it because they don't know how to do it. It's like, that should be step number one. If you think you're having issues, find out what your insulin level is and what your glucose level is. And if your insulin level is high and your glucose is normal, you are pre-diabetic. It's that simple. If it's down around 5 and your glucose is low, now you're doing good. But go ask them. I mean, go ask your doctor. You're going to freak them out. And you would have freaked me out. I was like, insulin level? I don't even, can you even test an insulin level? What does that do? I didn't know any of this. Doctor of pharmacy, 12 years of school, 30 years of practice. We aren't taught this. And your doctors aren't taught this. But So anyway, so be careful. So if you're going to do GLP-1s, now people are microdosing GLP-1s. So if you get it from a drug company, that's about 10 times the amount that someone needs. So there are people who are doing microdosing. So if you can find one of those physicians, and the reason you do microdosing isn't to paralyze your stomach until which that's what's happening. People are losing their stomachs, they're losing their intestines, they're losing everything. I mean, they're getting thyroid cancers, dementia, Alzheimer's. I mean, these when you keep your insulin levels high, like we are doing, when you keep your insulin levels high, it is damaging every organ in your body. And that's why that whole book by Dr. Ben Bickman, The Why We Get Sick, the insulin specialist, that's what he talks about, is just having high insulin is causing all this other issues. It doesn't matter what your glucose is doing. But I did it again. We were talking about, anyway, it'll pop in my head again. I don't remember what my final product where I was heading with.
But
be aware, this is marketing. The drug companies, they used to spend 70 to 80% of their profits on coming up with new drugs, and now they spend 70 to 80% of it on marketing. That's why I like what we're saying with the diabetic drugs. Once they found out we can make more diabetics, in the 1900s there were two classes diabetic medication made up like 7 different medications, and since 2000, now we have a total of 6 classes that make up 35 different diabetic medications. After they said in the 80s and 90s that it wasn't going to be worth it because there weren't enough diabetics, now we've made people type 2 diabetics, and so now they're coming up with about an average, no drugs for 80s and 90s, and now we have about an average of 1 drug every year because we are making more diabetics.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about your book for a couple of minutes. So you came out with your book in the last, what was it, 2022? Mm-hmm. It came out, and Your Plate is Your Fate, right? Mm-hmm. And correct. So, we talked about earlier, it's not a diet book.
Nope.
For the standpoint of, here's a chicken recipe or something.
Right.
Yeah, that type of thing. Give us a basis of what your book's about and why you wrote it.
The book, like you said, this isn't eat this, don't eat that. It's not. I don't have recipes, all that. And a lot of people told me to. It's like that's not what I want. I want to explain to people exactly what do nutrients do in your body. Why is something called a nutrient versus why something's called an anti-nutrient or something that's called a toxin? And there's a difference, and it goes back to exactly what does your body do with protein. What does it do with fat? What does it do with vitamins and minerals? Although I didn't hit a lot on vitamins and minerals, but I think nobody's having a problem with vitamins and minerals. I mean, they're having problems, but everybody understands they're important. But and they're having problems because we're eating all this man-made food that has no vitamins and minerals. And then they say, oh, fortified with calcium and zinc. The only reason they're fortified is because they take all that crap out or all the good stuff out, and then they add a little bit back, and then they pat themselves on the back. Oh, all right, good, giving you a mineral. It's crazy. But anyway, so the book is explaining in very basic terms. I really try to do this in very basic terms. I want everybody to understand exactly what nutrition is. So when you're looking at all these diets, the celery juice cleanse and all this stupid stuff that comes out, you can think, wait a minute. Celery juice, not any protein there, not any vitamin and minerals there. There's not any fat there. I guess I'm not really giving myself any nutrients whatsoever when I do that, So you can commonsensically, why does it work? Because you're not giving yourself any nutrients. So your body's eating itself. It's eating its fat, but it's also eating your muscle. That's why people can go on these starvation diets and they're going to lose weight, because the body's going to eat itself. It's that autocannibalism. Same thing they're doing with the GLP-1 agonists and everything. It's autocannibalism. So that's what the book is about. Just explain, and I really do try to get it very, very basic, but I've got a lot of friends who are in the medical field also, and just like me, they don't know this stuff. So I tried to write it so both people who have no medical background whatsoever understand it, but then also there's stuff in there for the people with medical background to understand it also. So I try to break it down to that. So it's not eat this, don't eat that, because I can tell you that right now. Eat God-made food, don't eat man-made food. I mean, it seriously is that simple. It seriously is. But there's all this rhetoric out there, all this, change of sleight of hand and, let me pull a rabbit out of my hat, and they're telling everybody that they should be eating the exact opposite, just like you see with the food pyramid and everything. And all you got to do, stay away from man-made food, stick with animal-based food. If you're going to eat plants, If you have glucose issues, which most people do, stay away from the ones that have a lot of glucose in it. That's like starch. Those are the plants that grow below the ground, because that's the food for the plant. So starch are just long chains of glucose. So if you have glucose issues, that means you're already diabetic. Okay. So to keep those down, you might want to just stick to the plants that grow above the ground. Or you don't have to put a plant in your mouth at all. I mean, I know people. I've got a person, I could show you a picture of this girl, absolutely crazy. She looks like she's probably in her early 60s. I think she's 83 years old. She's been a carnivore her whole life because of necessity. She lived up in Canada. They lived way out on a farm, away from everybody. Again, she's in her mid 80s. So they didn't have all this processed food. She moved away on her own. She didn't want to hassle with growing vegetables, fruits and vegetables. She didn't want to hassle with that. So that's all they ate is meat. She's raised 9 children, totally carnivore from the get-go. For teething, they gnawed on rib bones and things like that. They ate. And we've got friends now that they just had a baby and she's raising them the exact same way. She's doing the exact same way. I love it. But anyway, so that's what the book's about. It's explaining. So once you understand nutrition, now you can very easily, when they come out with all these stupid diets, you can understand, oh, wait a minute, that makes no sense at all. And in all honesty, that's how the plant-based foods are that way too. You can, but there's amino acids that animals need that plants don't have. So you have to give some different amino acids, which is the building blocks of protein. When you eat animals, you get all the amino acids you need. Vitamins, minerals, you got to eat really a lot of plants and specific ones depending on the vitamin and mineral you need, where if you eat animal-based products, you're getting all the vitamins and minerals. And again, I'm not saying go carnivore. If you want to, that's perfectly great. And my wife and I went carnivore for about a month, and it wasn't hard at all. But and when we eat plants, it's like might be Brussels sprouts or asparagus or lettuce and tomato on my burger or whatever. My burger without a bun.
Yep.
but so that's what the book's about, and that's really kind of what the podcast's about too. Our podcast used to be called Simple Healthy Choices for Weight Loss, but come to find out, weight loss, that just happens. That's just a positive side effect of eating healthy, because when you eat healthy, you're not using glucose for your energy source, you're using your own fat, and so you will lose weight. So my podcast, it wasn't really about that, because that is so easy. To lose fat is so easy. Just quit eating glucose. It's more about all the things, how our body works, all the stuff that we're being told and why that's a lie. So we changed the name just recently to Nutrition Prescription Wellness versus Medications, because that's what I'm really trying to do. I want to get people off medications. Medications, there is a point for medications where it's good, like surgeries and things like that. I've got an ER for something acute. But if you're taking a medication every single month, blood pressure medication, cholesterol medication, diabetic medication, whatever, if you're taking it every single month, that means that you are not curing anything. You are treating the symptoms, and you got to go back to the root cause. And the root cause is eating man-made food and bombarding our bodies with all these carbohydrates that our bodies don't know what to do with, and so they just stuff it. So that's what the podcast is about. That's what the book's about. That's what our course is about, just trying to get people educated so they understand what's going on. Because once you have the knowledge, you don't unlearn it. I mean, I will never go back to eating all the stuff in the box, bottle, bag, and can. I won't. I mean, I don't want the toxic. I want to be a healthy grandfather. I mean, that's what it is. I don't want to just live long. I want to die young, as late as possible. I want to be able to get up, run, play, jog, mountain climb, scuba dive, whatever my grandkids want to do, I'm there with them. That's what I want to do. I want a better quality. I don't want just more life. I want a better quality of life as I get older. So,
and that's fantastic, because I hear this excuse so many times. Well, I'm going to die anyway. Okay. It's not that, it's the quality of life to get there. A friend of mine, I did a podcast with him recently. He's in Springfield, and he has I'd call it a quasi ministry / business, is called Fourth Quarter Living. And so if you're in your fourth quarter of life, don't waste it. Okay. And one of the ways you don't waste that is to get healthy or stay healthy by applying the principles we've talked about today. Absolutely. Yeah. And so I'm all about promoting the information about this. You do have to open your mind if you've been stuck in the matrix of the other way of thinking that these drugs are good for you and the government would never lie to you and all those good things. You have to wake up and say, okay, I got to go research this, be open-minded, understand, go back to the basics. Because if you think about it, back in prairie days or whatever you want to call it, it was very simple. You killed the calf and you ate it, or you grew some vegetables and you ate them, right? I mean, it's right there in your backyard. Now we have to be so much wiser. That 95% of the choices out there are going to have negative things about them, right? And so you have to go back to the base. Like you said, you get half a cow or whatever you do, and you just eat off of that, right? And somebody the other day, I don't know if it was a comedian or somebody said this. They said, they spent all this time in the lab trying to come up with this fake hamburger that tasted like hamburger, right? So these meats that they created, and God created this cow that can eat grass and create T-bones.
Yep.
Wow, that's amazing. So
I know.
If you could,
and that's what's great. And people say that all the time. They ask, he's like, well, my grandparents ate, blah, 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 and they didn't have all these issues.
Yep. Bacon, eggs.
They ate bacon and sausage and all these things. The difference, and people don't get it, the difference is we did not have fast food. When we were kids, we didn't have all this fast food. We didn't sit around with a bag of chips and a soda pop and cookies and crackers and all this donuts and pizza and fast food. That wasn't there. Since that's not there, we weren't sick. We didn't have diabetes. That's why I said, no, they didn't even want to make a diabetic drug in the 80s and 90s because we didn't have enough type 2 diabetics. I mean, it was crazy. But now, I didn't again. I hope you're editing this.
I'm old enough to remember going to Arby's, and they had a rotisserie, and they had to cut the meat off of it to put it into the sandwich. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
They had a vertical rotisserie with the beef being cooked, and you had to cut it off. I mean, that's the way to eat it, right? Yeah. Get it right off of the side.
And even McDonald's. Back then, McDonald's used tallow for their... and tallow was beef fat. Lard is pig fat, beef fat is tallow. They used that until they came up with all these seed oils, and everybody's like, oh, this is so much more cheap, So now everybody went to seed oils. And of course they're cheap because there's no nutrient. It's all chemicals. Of course you can do things cheap when you do chemicals. And that's the difference. Our ancestors did not sit around and eat all day long. And they also were not hungry all day long. When they ate good, healthy food, it keeps them feeling full, gives them the energy, gives them the vitamins, minerals, everything they need. Nowadays, people don't give them any nutrients. They give themselves nothing but toxins, and they're eating constantly every 2 to 3 hours because they don't stimulate their satiety centers, the centers that make you feel full. So that's the huge difference. And so even if you just look at that, that should be enough to say, oh, I guess you're right. Maybe I shouldn't be eating all this stuff that man's making for us. And you'll be so much healthier for it.
So your book, so they can get your book on Amazon, right?
Yes, book's on Amazon.
Your Plate is Your Fate, Dr. Steve Hughlett. And they can get your podcast. Just Google your name. I'm guessing they could find the podcast.
Yeah, or you can go on whatever podcast you listen to and just type in nutrition prescription or Dr. Steve Hughlett. Either one of those will bring that up.
Okay. Yeah. And then is your training, is that on Coursera or Udemy or some other platform, or how do they get the training that you're talking about?
The training, they could go to our website, drstevehughlett.com. And we have the one-on-one where we actually will talk with you one-on-one. You get 8 different one-on-one sessions within a 3-month period. And so any questions you have, if you want to send me your labs, you have questions, and then along with that, we have a series of videos, like 50 different little 10 to 15 minute little snippet videos to do exactly what we're doing. Teach you how to change your thoughts, because we've been brainwashed so much. Teach you how to change your thoughts of what we've been told to what's actually nutritious for your body. And then how do you change your home? So, clean out your cabinets, clean out your refrigerator, get rid of all that crap. So we go through that. And then we have little things where they actually explain what the different nutrients are. And there's all this, meal planning, and there's a lot of other stuff that goes along with those videos. And then if you don't want us for one-on-one, then you can also just get the videos themselves if you want that. And if you just want a little snippet, we have another course of just like 14 videos for you to kind of get ready. But the main thing, go on our course, go on our website. And we also have a free newsletter that comes out every single Thursday where I take a question that one of our clients has asked us, and then I just break it down and explain exactly what the answer to that is. And that comes out every Thursday, and that's free. So all this, if they go on drstevehughlett.com, you'll see the free, click for the free newsletter. It'll show up in your inbox every Thursday. It has the courses, but the main thing, there's a weight loss solutions chat. It's 15 minutes. If you want, you can click that, get on our calendar, and then we'll come on and we'll have a one-on-one 15-minute talk and that's not to answer questions about nutrition, not to look at labs, not to do any of that. It's just to see if one of our courses is something that might be right for you. If it's not, it's not. It's not pushy. We just want to get everybody educated. I'm not going out here trying to make millions of dollars. I just want to educate people. So, and we put a lot of time into the course. I mean, it took us a couple of years to get the course, all the videos and get everything ready and everything. So we truly want to help people. But drstevehughlett.com, go on there, click on either the weight loss solution chat and talk to us, click on the free newsletter, or you can actually buy one of the courses right off there if you just want to buy one. But that's kind of awesome. That's kind of what we've got now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. In my podcast, this Leverage podcast, a lot of it is about, getting your message out and being able to leverage in a business to be able to grow and expand your market and that type of thing. And I love your heart on this, Steve. I mean, it's just fantastic. I know you're doing it for the right reasons, and you're perfect position, I think, to get this thing nationwide. Your book's great and all those things. So I'd love to help you in any way I can, and hopefully we can have you on again to even talk more about upcoming things here as well. I'd love to do that. So
I'd love to.
So thanks again for being with us.
Hey, thanks for having me on here. It was great. Hope I didn't talk your ear off.
It was very good. It's very good. Thanks, Steve. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.